This is Luke Peters of Sift News Commentary, where we analyze and break down news coverage of US and Canadian foreign policy. Today, we'll be talking about Canada's most recent rival, China.
We are extremely concerned, as should be all countries around the world, that China is choosing to act arbitrarily.
You may already be aware that relations between Canada and China have not exactly been going well, starting with Canada's arrest of Huawei CFO, and China retaliating by detaining multiple Canadian citizens, most notably Robert Schellenberg receiving a death sentence from Chinese courts for drug smuggling.
Can you recall a time when Canadian-Chinese relations were worse than they are right now?
Well, no, simple answer to that is no.
Yes, I have not seen relations of as low as that we've seen now.
Currently, yes, there's no doubt.
That's 3 votes for this is the worst it's been since the PRC took over, since the People's Republic of China was formed in the late 1940s.
We could probably say that, yes.
So exactly how did relations between two economic superpowers start to sour? Canadian authorities claim that Meng Wanzhou has been working illegally in Canada by violating US sanctions against Iran, and there's also concerns about Huawei acting on behalf of the Chinese government by collecting American and Canadian data to be used. This narrative, however, comes into question when it becomes clear that it was the US who requested Canada detain Meng Wanzhou in hopes of later requesting her extradition so that Trump can use her as a bargaining chip in his trade wars with China.
Meng was arrested at the request of the United States. Now, a spokesperson for the Chinese government is accusing both countries, Canada and the U.S., of abusing their extradition treaty. CBC Asia correspondent Sasha Petrusik has been on this story since it began.
China basically continued to take a very hard line. It denounced the United States for the news that it was going to continue ahead with the extradition request to Canada for Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei executive, and it also attacked Canada for even considering this extradition request.
Several talking heads in the Canadian political media landscape claim Canada's innocence through a necessary move for maintaining national security in this development, while citing China as the aggressor. A notable figure is former CSIS director Ward Alcock, who appeared on the agenda with Steve Paikin to dismiss claims of why the Chinese public are outraged at Canada's involvement in the US-China trade wars by going after Huawei.
Having said that, I think Ottawa has managed it relatively well. The bad judgment, frankly, from my point of view, is more on the Chinese. Their approach to this is, in terms of the long-term relationship, I think disastrous.
Jennifer Fang, who also appeared on the show, explained how Huawei is to China what Apple is to the US, and that the public outcry is fueled by national pride in the company as a global tech giant.
I think we probably need to make sure that everybody, or our public here, understands the significance of Huawei. Huawei to China is probably like Apple to the America. So with that context, then we would be able to understand the reaction a bit better.
But Alcock dismissively conflates the public sentiment to China's state media narrative, and that the authoritarian control of the private entity by the oppressive government of China is all that matters.
When you say Huawei's relationship to the government of China, that is, of course, one of the key things we need to understand here. How do you understand that relationship to be?
Well, the reality of Huawei's relationship with China is that it is, in theory at least, an independent company. And we would normally think of an independent company as being entirely separate from the government. That's obviously not entirely true in China, given that China is an authoritarian state. It's not a democratic state. At the end of the day, it's the fiat of the Chinese Communist Party which will decide what Huawei will do or not do, not the law of China. There is no rule of law that would enable Huawei to choose its own course.
Alcock, as well as most of the Canadian media, hold China solely responsible for the declining relations, despite the plans coming from the US. The media is also treating US sanctions against Iran as if it's supported by international law, when it's not. giving Canada little justification by that charge. There are critical voices that Canada is taking orders from the US without having considered the risks of going against China, which is not backfiring with the detention of Canadian citizens. Coverage by Canadian media on the international debacle was mostly pro-US Canada and anti-China. However, voices for China's perspective were at least given a platform to be heard. Many Canadians are unhappy about their government giving in to America's demands and making Canada a proxy in this US-China trade war. If you enjoyed this video and found it informational or helpful, please feel free to like and subscribe to show your support. If you'd like to add anything or if you had any problems in the information in the video, please comment below so I can address it.